many talents and with the obstacles that I face. I'm going to make sure it's not going out. Yeah.
Over here.
Might be the wire. I'm almost eating it. Just had dinner. It's okay, here it is. Check.
Okay.
Yeah, let's take that off.
Over there.
Man, how many people can hear me just by talking right now?
I'm going to hold the wireless.
Okay.
I do a song and dance routine, but you guys would all leave. I think maybe it's a battery issue. He's going to get a wireless.
You can hear the wire.
Hold the mic down.
Record that. Leave that.
In the wireless?
Sorry, my diaphragm can only project like 15%. So. Let me know when you're ready for the wireless. Okay. Well, I could demonstrate my chair if I were just waiting. That'll take some time. The way I control the chair is a hard puff forward. Wait, can you hear me now? A hard puff forward and a hard sip backwards. Soft sip right and a soft sip left. I'm going to show you real quick. I just was teaching them how to do the chair.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to go real quick. Forward. Backwards. Right. Left. That's my mobility. That's my mobility. Did you turn the other one off? This one. Just make sure.
Yep, it's on.
All right, we'll go with what we go with. All right, now that we've taken up 10 minutes. This is great technical difficulties. How about now? Oh, yes, if you hold it right there, we'll just try it out. So, as I was, I just demonstrated my chair. When Mike first called me and asked me to speak, I was like, what do we talk about? He said it's the Chamber of Commerce. I talk about owning a business, overcoming obstacles, inspiring. And it's like, well, the whole thing's about inspiring. He said, there's a lot of different people that are in the room. Fire, passion, and just and business people. I was like, okay, cool. So one of the things that I said, well, okay, he just said, tell your story, because that's what I find inspiring. So I wasn't always using the wheelchair that I just demonstrated for you. Mike's laughing. But about 17 years ago, I was going to Lansing Community College, 2 jobs, hip-hop artist. Was going to college for photography. And we had an album release party, my group Miscellaneous. We had it at the house. Professional thing to have an album release party. We usually do it like in a professional setting like this, candlelight. But we had it at the house. We're 20 years old. There's obviously some underage drinking, things like that. And I go out to check the parking lot to make sure to see that people aren't messing with my neighbor's yard and things, just keeping things in order. And I go back up to the steps and I'm talking to someone in front of me. And then either out of nowhere, either someone on foot or they're in a car. It's kind of, there's still questions about it. But someone pulled a gun and opened fire and I got shot. We know for sure that I was shot in the neck and the 3rd vertebrae because I still have the bullet in my 3rd vertebrae. There is a piece of skin in the back of my head, like where a line is. Whether another one grazed by, we don't know, but we're sure I'm the one. No. And at that time, when it happened, you know, I fell back and I lost the ability to breathe, to speak, to do anything, even to move. And laying there, conscious and unconscious, you know, and out of consciousness, looking up at the sky, in and out. And the first thing you would think that all your friends or the people that were around you, your entourage, they're going to come to your rescue, right? No, wrong. There was only a very few that stuck around. The other ones was more like, I'm going to take care of myself. I need to get out of here. It was, you know, a very eye-opening experience to see people in their selfish nature, or you just never know how you guys would react when something like that may happen. I was lucky that I had a person taking EMT classes that was inside my house that actually came out and stabilized me until the ambulance came and I ended up going into the hospital. While in the hospital, they, at the emergency room, to fuse your neck or to stabilize you, they had to put 4 screws in my head with a halo. It's like a metal crown with poles, goes down to the waist, uncomfortable. Obviously, the screws in your skull. But to stabilize my neck. And then I had tubes, I think they were in my nose, mouth, everything. Now, my parents are divorced, both remarried, and my dad and my stepmom lived in Indiana, and my mom and my stepdad lived in Clio. They got the phone call, so imagine what that's like for 45 minutes racing to know if your child is still alive, or what's the worst. I have not experienced that, but I can only put myself in her shoes. And my dad, and I'm coming from Fort Wayne, Indiana. When I came in, when I was awake at the local hospital, you know, they were telling me what happened. I already knew what happened, but it's just like hearing it, and then the doctor saying that, you know, kind of like, why am I not moving? You know, they're saying you're not able to walk. I think they say you'll never walk again, but you know, I don't listen to that stuff. I mean, you never know. Even though it's been 17 years, it still can happen. It was crushing. There was definitely a devastating blow. And they didn't even know, you know, about the survival of me too. I mean, I wasn't even stabilized yet. There was a lot of chaos. I knew a lot of friends that had nicknames, and they were trying to see me, and I was under an alias at the hospital. And so I didn't know who, you know, Brian was. I only knew him by, you know, JJ or something. It was a lot of emotion happening, up and down. Who did the shooting? Why was the shooting happening? Where were the police? Where was the investigation? And at the same time, I was unable to talk. I communicated with eye blanks when the detective came in after 4 days later. When he asked me the questions, I communicated with my eyes and blinked once for yes and twice for no. Then eventually I learned how to tongue click. And so it was the same way from blinking to tongue clicks. Now I could move my mouth eventually, but there was no audio that came out because I was on a ventilator about within a week later. They cut your throat, put a trachea in, and then that's your life support. That's the machine that's allowing you to breathe, keeping you alive. And staying at the local hospital, just figuring things out. There's no answers. There's no book. And with me being on the vent, trying to get to a rehab facility is the next process. My parents went and looked for places, a lot of the places at that time, this was 97, that didn't take a lot of vet patients. Luckily, Colorado knew about my story, and before you know it, I didn't want to leave Michigan at all. I was like totally against it, but we went out to Colorado, to Eaglewood, Colorado, to Craig Hospital, where they specialized getting people off the vet. Actually, it was the best thing ever that I ever went to. So now we transitioned from the local hospital, we're in rehab. I gotta do a weight shift. So we get to rehab, and then it's like boot camp there. You know, you're going to physical therapy and occupational therapy, and then the respiratory therapist comes in and they turn the ventilator off for 30 seconds, and you're looking at it like, oh, how do I breathe? how do I breathe again? And they said, and they give you a pulsometer where you can see your oxygen levels. So it's kind of like biofeedback. So eventually you go from 30 seconds to a minute and every 30 seconds. And they come in 3 times a day, 5 days a week until, you know, you're off the ventilator. That's the hope. I was there until October this year, October 29th until March 20th. While in there, I spent all the holidays in there. People were out doing everything, and it felt like isolation. Like I was somewhere outside of this world because the world kept spinning without me. And there was, you know, I got to hear about everything that was going on. There was a person that came in. It was a chaplain or a priest or something that comes and prays for people there. And he came in, didn't know me, and he asked me, you know, do you forgive who or who did this to you? I said yes and meant it, and it was like the weight being lifted off, you know, and progress went from there. You know, that before you know it, the halo was coming off. I was getting better and stronger at the ventilator, and because the wheelchair that I was using did not get ordered properly, I actually got off the vent about a week or 2 right before I was supposed to go home, which I came home March 20th, and it wasn't planned that way. So September 20th to March 20th, I spent from local to rehab, which is also the day after is my dad's birthday. And it's the first day of spring, so it's, you know, I time things different. Transitioning to my mom's house, because instead of going to nursing home, I had a place to go. My stepdad built a ramp lining the doorways. I'm telling you, I've been blessed ever since it happened. And then relearning everything, how to, you know, go back to college. What am I going to do for a job or be sufficient? And, you know, just coming back into society. It was just a lot to learn, you know, from being a 20-year-old person to this breaking down into nothing but your spirit. That's why every obstacle that I face now, I'm humble about, because I've already been down. And if I haven't figured them out, I say how. I figure out how to you know, get over these obstacles. I went from my mom's and transitioned into an apartment for like 10 years while I was going to college. And at the same time, learning business, going back to school, business, and hanging out with entrepreneurs and business owners, volunteering anywhere from the Cancer Society to starting a Skateland event with Andy Jr., Susky, and we started raising donations for coats for kids, toys for tots, and Food Bank of Eastern Michigan. We've been doing that for 8 years. Actually, when I met Andy Jr., we met at a volunteer event, and that really helped me grow too, because meeting Andy Jr., you know, being around his dad, he's a business person. I didn't sit there and act like I knew everything. I listened to him. And you know, I watched him. It was almost like an apprentice. I was just, you know, he taught me a lot about business. At the same time, when it came to the time to be able to raise money for a wheelchair van, he was one of the board members, the chair, and the co-chair. And I did. I raised enough money. I raised $32,000 to buy that van. That's a lot of money for a fundraiser. So, is there any more talents that I've left out? Like, maybe. But I've been at the Rotaries and the Chambers, and I've spoke all over and told my story, and, you know, and in schools, wherever. If I'm just at, like, the Best Buy, people, the first thing they ask is how I move my chair. For, you know, if there's 10 or 15 people surrounding me asking me all these questions. And asking me if I feel comfortable with asking the questions after they've already asked 10 or 10. So, but the reason why the Inspire came from, because that was the one word, even when I was in rehab, is what they always said. It always carried with me. And when I opened up my shop in November of 2011, after a lot of business planning and strategizing, and doing a lot of other businesses that did not succeed, and starting over. You know, I do the graphic design and apparel now, and with the apparel I was allowed to make my own Inspire stuff, and so I started wearing this, and I started seeing the impact when I would go into the schools and the kids were fulfilled with, they wanted to do something or do their best. And so I was like, wow, we should really market this instead of just holding it to ourselves. And now a lot of people have bought a lot of Inspire stuff, from hats to bracelets to shirts. And even one of the mentors that I met was Damon John, the owner of Fugu, who was on Shark Tank. Now, I got to meet him and we stayed in touch, and we've been in touch the whole time. I went to his academy and I learned a lot of entrepreneur, a lot of business stuff. At the same time, he also wears the Inspire stuff. And he's posted photos and he has written on Facebook and Twitter about what he feels, what he thinks about me, which is pretty sweet. But there's a lot of, that's where a lot of the Inspire stuff comes from. I'm blessed today because I have, over at my table, I got my mom, my dad, my stepdad, and my stepmom. Now they're you know, like I said, they were divorced, but they both remarried. My mom, she worked hard. Well, I mean, I'm talking hard. And she just didn't go to the job, she gave it the extra mile of the job. And that's an inspiration if you think about it. And a lot of people, they go to work and they just work and they punch out and they go home. A lot of people work like they own ownership of that business. Like they work like they own the company, even if they don't, but they sure do work like it. The same as my dad. My dad did the same thing, 45 years in the Myers. On Sundays when we was by weekend, we'd be at Myers and we'd be doing implants. He worked for that company like he owned it. That was the extra, you know, inspiration to really, of work. And the same thing, both of them, they both married people that go the extra mile. My stepdad, he's a teacher, he's a retired teacher. He didn't just teach and go home and then that was it and be comfortable. He stayed there, he left, he came back, he announced the football games, he went to every basketball game, and then he also started the track team and went to all the dances. He cared. He went the extra mile. My stepmom, she worked at Myers too, but now she does private care. We were just there Christmas Day and she left for a few hours just to take care of somebody. So she's always putting everything and all the effort into what they do. So I have a real strong support circle to show me that don't just do something just to do it. Do it because you love it, do it because you have passion and care about it. And go the extra length. Just because you got to point B, go to point C, D, and E or something. Always give it your all and give it your best. And that's kind of like what the whole Inspire stuff is about. And, you know, if there's anything today that can inspire, you know, with this from networking, you know, go out and do it. I mean, if you heard someone say that they are doing gardening, if that inspires you to do it, then do it. Don't talk yourself out of it. One of the real cool things that just has happened today, actually, I know I didn't tell you, but I was looking at Inspire and I was just kind of thinking of an acronym, and I was like, how could I do this? Like, well, it wasn't just because of this event, but maybe it was. This feels special. But I thought of it like getting in a vehicle, like driving a car. And so I was like, so the I is like, you know, you have to get in, so it's got to start within. The inspiration starts within. And the end is like one of the things I always say, never say can't, always say how. A lot of times when you hear them, when you see somebody do something, you go, oh, I want to do that, but then you start talking yourself out of it. And when you do that, you say can't, it automatically stops it. If you say how is a building block. It builds when you sleep. It builds when you eat. It just builds and builds. It might not happen today, tomorrow, or 5 years, or 10 years, but eventually that how will happen as long as you keep towards it. And then you have the S. Well, you have to start the car. And then so I was like, wow, you got to start the car. The S. Sounds like the P. Well, what do? You got to put it in gear. So once you have this inspiration, and then you got to put some action to it. You got to put it in gear. What was it? NISP. I know. And the I, you have to imagine. Imagine that you're already accomplishing what you're going towards. And then the R was, I'm trying to think what the R was. It was something. You said what? Reach is good. Reach is good. Reach was good. It wasn't Reach, but I'll go with Reach. I just thought about this today, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. You know, I mean, so you're in the vehicle, now you're driving, now you put it in gear. So, you know, you gotta, where are you going? And then once you get to your destination, what do? Last eat, you gotta go the extra mile. So I was like, that is pretty sweet. So I just shared that with you guys for the very first time. So you'll be seeing it on Facebook once I put it up. So you know what's weird? I always end up going places that I never plug my own stuff. Everybody else's. I do. I have shirts at the table. I have bracelets, shirts, and hats. And then I also have a picture with Damon and I. We've kept the relationship very strong. I learned a lot from him. And if you see the box, Dad, will you show him the box? It's really cool. Before I even started the business in November, this is the box. I was thinking, wow, you know, let's, like, how could you have a box and have like sponsors on it and put the shirt in? So the shirt is inside the box. So you take it out of the box, that also acts as the hanger. Well, if you think about this, if you're doing a fundraiser, you get sponsors, you figure out what the cost of the box is, the cost of the shirt, the labor, everything. So what's the total cost? You put your sponsor, you get a sponsor to sponsor the boxes, and then you can put them on there, so that when a person doing a fundraiser, they sell these shirts in the box, it's 100% proceeds. And that was my idea, and I worked with Lando Packaging to construct it.
It's also a hanger.
And it's also a hanger. And you can put like jewelry and accessories, watch, I mean, you can actually travel with this. So, I think that was all
His own idea.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate that.
He told me to keep it brief, so.
About as brief as Mike.
So please support Eric and the Inspired. His table's over here. He's got lots of product there. Please support that before you guys leave. Thanks, Eric.